Hello and welcome to Parent Talk. Today our guest speaker, Brad Kaplin, returns to discuss how to help your child succeed in elementary school. Part 2, when and how to help with homework.
So this is homework. Everybody's favorite thing, homework. First, we'll recognize this is a general discussion and each child is an individual. And so what you take from this next segment will depend on your child and the child's age and school and how much homework they get, etc. Okay, so just recognize, please, it's a general discussion. You have to sort of shift it like most, parenting advice. You have to shift it to your situation. So let's first take a step back and sort of answer the question, what is the purpose of homework? Because sometimes we can lose the frustration of homework. We can lose track of what the purpose of homework is. There's two answers, the hand-in-hand answers, okay? One is to reinforce learning and mastery of academic skills taught in class. So in a very simple sense, students spend 25, 30 hours actually in class a week. They're doing 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes of homework 5 days a week or whatever it is. That's another 2, 3, 4 hours of academic work. It helps build their academic skills. That's a relatively straightforward answer. It's time that their teacher didn't get to, so let's get some extra practice. The other part, which in my opinion is more important, is building executive functions, organization skills, time management skills, responsibility, most important, independence on the part of the child. And a lot of what I talk about now is going to come back to independence. And so these two things are hand in hand, they're not opposed to each other. Okay, this is why homework happens. Reinforce learning, building those skills. Ideally, to achieve these goals, and this is my opinion now, homework should be mild to moderately difficult. Highly challenging learning should be saved for the classroom with an experienced teacher to guide the student. It should not be happening at home with a parent, presumably a parent who doesn't have an education degree, being stuck with it. Okay, and that's immediately a big part of the frustration of homework. Okay, it should be mild to moderately difficult. If homework is too hard, that may not be helpful for the child and building their educational experience. And going back to Maria's question motivation, right? Of course, this is not in your control as a parent. So there's not really much more I'm going to say about that, but hopefully mild to moderately difficult. Also, 25 kids in a class, homework that's at the right difficulty for some may be a little too hard for certain students, right? In a moment, I'm going to walk you through a path or a series of steps leading from homework dependence at a young age to homework independence. But just a couple of notes first. We all know children don't jump from not talking to talking in full sentences or paragraphs, right? They say one word, they say a couple words together, they start speaking in sentences. Okay, they don't go from crawling to running, right? They take one step, they take a few steps, and so on. You get the idea. So similarly, it would be very unreasonable to expect a child to go from, expect all kids to develop independent work habits at the same age. Sorry, that's what I was looking for. It would be unreasonable to expect all kids to develop independent work habits at the same age. In other words, I'm not putting ages or grades on what I'm about to share because that's really bad. Okay, so this is a generalized path forward. So back into the screen share. These are, okay, that is clearly what's coming next, and now you'll know. These are my own terms, okay? They're not, you won't find them in literature or on the internet or anything. Just for the sake of this presentation. So the path to homework independence, 5 steps. Starting off with full dependence. Any young child, grade 1, grade 2, doing homework for the first time is going to be fully dependent on a parent. The student needs a parent for all aspects of the homework process. Sitting down, getting started, getting the pencil there sharpened, confirming that it's done, working through the activities. Okay, you're there with them like the tutor, you're helping them. That's reasonable for all young students, right? They're not going to jump from there to full independence, okay? And that's going to create chaos. So you want to go through a series of steps, and it's fine to adapt what I share here to your context, okay? I call the next step, step away dependence, all right? And what this looks like, the student needs a parent to get started on homework and explain each activity. Once working, the parent can step away for a few minutes at a time or until the next activity. And here when I say step away, I don't mean child at the kitchen table and parent at the counter, starting on dinner. I do mean in another room. So the child has the sense that they are alone in this space working on their homework. So if you imagine a young student with, let's say, 20 minutes of homework, a bit of English, a bit of math, what this would look like is you're with the child for the first 5 minutes. You're showing them how to check the agenda. Okay, we have to do the English vocabulary, getting the book out, getting the pencil, getting them started, maybe doing 2 of the examples together. And then, okay, I want you to finish the last 3 on your own. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, mom needs to check on the sister, whatever, right? Come back in 5 minutes, or the child lets you know they're finished. Do that again with the math activity, 2-3 minutes, leave for 5 minutes, come back again. So you imagine the 20 minutes of homework, you're there for the first 5 minutes, you're gone for 5 minutes, you're there for 3 minutes, you're gone for 5 minutes, you're there. Okay, call that step away independence. This is a stepping stone to get your child, used to spending some time working alone, okay, where they're accountable. In those 5 minutes, they're supposed to finish those 3 examples, right? As I said before, this is only possible if it's mild to moderately difficult. If the homework is too difficult and they can't work on it independently because of academic reasons, then you have to help them. There's nothing you can do. The next step is tasks and starting dependence. The student needs a parent to stay on top of homework tasks to help get it, and needs help getting organized and set up. Once started, he or she can work alone. So it starts the same way, agenda, or a lot of schools are websites now of here's the homework, checking it, here's what you need to do, math book, English book, pencil. Okay, you're ready, I'm gone. So now if it's 20 minutes of homework, you're there for the first 5 minutes and then you're gone. Okay, and I didn't write it, but checking it at the end is still part of step 3 there, to make sure it's done because maybe they forgot something, right? Tasks and starting dependence. Okay, and you can see the stepping stones building. Next up, partial independence. The student needs reminders from a parent to keep up with homework and assignments. Otherwise, he or she can get set up and start alone. So here you're sort of like the supervisor at the factory. Okay, did you check your agenda? You have the test Friday, but you have soccer Thursday, so you better study today or else you're not gonna, have time for it, right? So here you're the overseer, you're making sure that it's happening, but other than saying, okay, go do it, they're doing it, right? They're taking out the agenda and everything I've described a few times already, right? Partial independence. In a lot of families, they don't really go past this, okay? A lot of families, the parent stays involved in homework at that level because staying involved is going to help the child succeed. I would very strongly encourage trying to get to the next step, which is full independence, where the student is fully independent with managing homework, due dates, organizing work, assignments, completing tasks alone. This means the parent is virtually hands off unless there's an email or a call from the teacher, okay, or unless the marks are dropping, which I know is a scary thought for many parents, right, to be hands off and to give your child that responsibility, but it's through mistakes that you learn. And if the child doesn't do the studying on Wednesday and has soccer on Thursday and does poorly on the test Friday, hopefully that only happens once and they learn from it, right? I said I didn't want to sort of put grades or ages, but this is later, right? If this could happen in grade 5, that's a big accomplishment. If it happens in grade 6 or even high school, grade 7 or 8, that's fine, right? Like I said, very sort of general in terms of grades. It's going to be different for different kids, okay? Lots of families stay here and the parents stay involved. It's fine. I would strongly encourage going a step further, if that works for your situation. So I'll leave this screen just for a moment if anybody wants to take a screenshot or a picture with a phone, and then we will go to tips. Again, 3 tips working on homework. Okay, everything I said here is dependent on mild to moderately difficult homework. If the homework is too hard and they're not academically able to do it, then they need help. They need a parent, a sibling, a tutor, or something. And this all falls apart. Okay, so 3 tips for how parents can help directly with homework. So this is young students where you are helping. This is older students when they have homework that is too difficult where you have to help. So this is when you are involved, right? Number 1, always aim to guide your child. Don't simply tell them the answer. If you see, which is, again, you're tempted to just, oh, it's this. If you see spelling or math mistakes, underline or direct them to it first and see if they can fix it. Okay, if they did a little essay or they did whatever, a multiplication or addition, okay, if you're looking it over, underline first. Say, oh, look, 3 red underlines. This is what teachers do in class all the time. But be the teacher, right? That's a simple thing. Okay, give them a chance to solve it or change it. Okay, if they can't get it on the second round, then I don't want to say give them the answer, but then you teach them, look, you didn't carry the 1, you carry the 1 now. Okay? Guide first before just. Number 2, for tougher material, do shared examples where both you and your child are working through a problem with pencil in hand. So this is a really important part of the learning process that often happens in school. And what this looks like is, let's take this picture. Imagine this little girl is working on addition, okay, carrying addition, regrouping and carrying. Okay, you're right there sitting next to them with a paper and a pencil. Okay, and you're writing your 582 plus whatever, and she's writing her 582 plus whatever. So your papers are the same. You both have the same math. Okay, and you're talking out loud. Okay, let's say 5 plus 6. I'm going to put the 1 down here and carry the other 1 up here. Well, maybe 5 plus 7, so it's a 2 and a 1. 2 down here and the 1 up there. Okay, look over. Did she do it? Yeah, she did. Okay. Now this, the carry plus this plus this. So you and your child are both doing it at the same time. Okay, this is invaluable. And if a student comes home, let's say 10 math examples, doing 3 shared examples can be the difference from them, having an easy time and doing the other 7 independently versus having just a big chaotic argument over 10 math examples that they're not ready to do. Okay, so shared examples are a really good thing that anybody can do. Okay, obviously this is, lower level skills, high school math, you may not be able to do shared examples because, who remembers high school math? 3, for memory-based tasks like spelling or times tables, balance review with quizzing, self-quizzing, sibling quizzing, parent quizzing at about a 60 to 40% ratio. In other words, for 10 minutes, 6 minutes of review, 4 minutes of quizzing. Okay, this is research supported in terms of how our memory works and how we retain knowledge long-term. I'm going to jump to a university student rereading the passage again and again. It's not going to stay. Okay, university students should spend, for every 10 minutes they study, 4 minutes rereading, 6 minutes, book closed, writing what they just read, writing, an answer to a quiz question. Okay, times tables, I wouldn't even say 4 minutes. I would divide those in 2. 5 minutes of times tables 3 times a week, 2 minutes of reading over the 7s line, 7, 14, 21, 7, 14, 21, 3 minutes of a parent or sibling asking, okay, what's 7 times 8 with the book closed? What's 7 times 4? Okay, so that's concluding our homework segment. To read a section, about 3-4 minutes of an essay I wrote during my master's at McGill. So I sort of jump right into the essay and it'll end abruptly. It'll sound more scripted and academic-y because it's an essay. Okay, so here we go. A discussion about evaluation must first look at the wider context of education. Our current system originated from a sort of industrial approach, education for the masses at a reasonable economic cost. As such, the evaluation of students is set up to work in a similarly mechanized model. While a 7-year-old's ability to read or write or apply mathematical concepts is surely complex, in most cases it must be reduced down to a percentage grade, a number out of 100 that facilitates comparison to other students of the same age. While written commentary and parent-teacher conferences occur to share more detailed information, it is the percentage mark determined by the teacher that is the criterion to be upheld and judged in various ways. For older students, it is these grades that a higher educational institution will use to consider admission or scholarships. By association, our society comes to value these percentage grades very highly, and for good reason. Lower grades can limit a student's opportunities, while higher grades can open many doors. Therefore, between the requirements for reporting, the manner in which educational institutions admit students, and the societal obsession with numerical grades, teachers are forced into working, namely evaluating, within this fairly rudimentary system. It seems like nonsense to reduce a student's writing ability to a percentage. There's just too much complexity to the discipline of writing, including spelling, grammar, sentence structure, fluidity, creativity, organization, and more. This context leads one to recognize that teachers must do the best they can to evaluate students fairly and come up with an accurate percentage mark, while simultaneously bearing in mind that the real objectives of teaching lie in the actual learning and development of each child. Okay, there's two phrases I'm going to read twice because they're the most important. The real objectives of teaching lie in the actual learning and development of each child. The question then becomes, how do we, that is teachers, administrators, students, parents, the entire school community, how do we navigate this system while maintaining focus on what is most crucial, learning? A relaxed mindset about grades and evaluation can go a long way in this regard. Okay, reading that one twice again. A relaxed mindset about grades and evaluation can go a long way in this regard. When thought of constructively, percentage grades can be used along with a variety of other formal and informal assessment methods, as well as direct teacher feedback to guide a student towards further learning. It comes back to how the student thinks about his or her education as a whole. The goal might be to write a great essay, not to receive a 90% in English. Or the goal could be to develop rigorous problem-solving skills that will help later in life, not to receive a 90% in math. The numbers, the 70s or 80s or 90s, are just one of many pieces of feedback and guidance a student or parent can receive to be taken in stride and not obsessed over. By framing grades around a growth mindset, we can help our students progress without creating needless anxiety and stress over the numbers. So I'm stopping reading the essay there. Whoops. And I will unpack that in a little bit more casual way, okay? And reiterate the main points. So percentage grades are a limited, rudimentary system, okay? They exist because of the system of education built and how admissions work and how reporting works and blah, 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 right? It's not ideal. We have to recognize that it's not ideal. Okay, I want to give you an example of a student I worked with. Of course, I won't use the name. Okay, when I taught grade 4 in person, I had a student who was dyslexic. In his writing, he had amazing, just incredible ideas. He would write these fantastic stories, great plot, clear introduction, development, conflict, well developed characters that have a lot of life. Just incredible writing for grade 4. Of course, he was dyslexic, and his spelling was, as you would expect for a dyslexic child, very poor, and his writing. And the way the evaluation is set up in grade 4, the stuff teachers have to look for and the way I have to evaluate based on the rubrics, he ended up falling in the 70s, and his ideas, his creativity, his organization, pushed him up, and his spelling and his mechanics pushed him down, right? And so I'm sure you can imagine how this numbers, 73, let's say, it communicates close to nothing. I mean, in the parent-teacher conference, obviously I had to, put the number aside and explain to the parents, what he can do, what he I don't want to say can't do, but what is still developing, and where this student falls, in writing, and we just talked about growth mindset, and that very much connects to what I'm talking about evaluation. I would never say at grade 4 age that any child's, potential is limited. Any one of them could grow up to become an author. But for the sake of this discussion, if I had to pick one of my 25 students that year that, is going to grow up to become an author, okay, it is most likely to be that dyslexic child, because he's going to be able to use a spell check. He's going to, learn, even within his dyslexia, how to accommodate. He's going to be able to use a spell check. He's going to have an editor working with him. He has these incredible writing ideas, right? And an incredible potential to be a writer. But he's only got a 73. And there's kids with 90s who also could be writers, but if I had to guess, I would guess this guy, right? And so obviously it's an extreme situation, but it just is a clear demonstration of how, the numbers are not everything, right?
Right.
Now, I want to sort of catch a caveat with that. I'm not saying that the marks aren't important, right? Those two things can simultaneously be true. Marks have value because of the system and the opportunities and the limits they create. So don't forget about marks, okay? But marks are limited in terms of what they communicate about your child and in terms of what they represent. Okay, those two things can be true at the same time. Something I said later in the essay, but I didn't read it. Grades can also be very subjective. We all know harder marking teachers, easier teachers. We all can remember our own, maybe not elementary school, high school with, the harder and easier ones. Certain subjects like writing are very subjective. A subject like math is a little bit more black and white, but there's room for subjectivity in the difficulty of the test, in the part marks for problem solving and so on, okay? There are studies out there that take, a student paper and a rubric with it and give it to 200 teachers, and the mark and have them evaluated. And the marks that come back are all different, 70s, 80s, 90s, from the same paper, right? The teachers don't all come back with an 86, okay? And so this is just another sort of nail in the coffin of marks that demonstrates their lack of value. Okay. So finally, what's the big conclusion here for you as a parent who, again, has no control over that system? Your child is in all likely scenarios going to go through their full schooling with grades, right? Maybe someday that won't be the case, but not anytime soon. Teachers and parents can try to frame grades around the growth mindset and ensure students are focused on learning and development. Okay, so this is why I spoke about growth mindset. First, it really comes into play here when we talk about evaluation of grades. Okay, and this is not an easy thing to do because there's so much hype and obsession around the grades. All the other kids in the class are asking, what did you get? What did you get? There's such a sense of grades are so important, and they are, that it's hard to redirect from the 90 to the essay and to the paragraph rating and to the math skill, right? But that's the best thing you can do. And to give you a concrete example of that, when you're seeing a test, an assignment, a report card, a project coming back, with strong grades, always lead the discussion back to what the child learned and how they grew. They come home with a 90% in grade 4 writing. It's not, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you because you worked hard, obviously, but the next part of it isn't, and you got a 90. I'm so proud of you because you worked hard and now you're able to write in paragraphs, which you couldn't do 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. Okay? And now you're able to, write a poem that you couldn't do. Now you're able to understand a high level text that you can do, make an inference, solve a big problem, whatever, right? Always bring it back to the learning. So little by little, the child is recognizing that what's important to you as a parent is not the 90 or the 80 or 85, whatever. What's important to you is what they are learning, the skills they're developing, the things they're now able to do that they couldn't do before. And that's the only thing you're in control of, right? You're not in control over the race. But I was very clear that he's an exceptional writer and that this mark is meaningless. With the child, throughout the year, I was very encouraging of him. And, when you get those low marks, I definitely talk to him to make sure it's clear to him, hey, look at this part of the rubric, creativity, organization, ideas, fours, like, hey, 4, 4, 4, you're able to do all these things. So, definitely helped him internalize that, not to worry about those numbers. These are not everything. They don't capture even a fraction of your child's true ability and potential. Like I said, that kid with the 73s can grow up to be an author like any of the rest. Again, sort of repeating it, but I'm not saying to completely forget about grades. They do matter. They do open doors. You don't want to ignore them. That would be irresponsible, but you want to put it in context. I know there might be a few people from Ontario here, but I don't know exactly, but it's probably similar. Teachers have to evaluate based on the Quebec curriculum, meaning they have to evaluate a certain set of skills. Again, I taught grade 4, so I just know that best. So, in English, it's paragraph writing, it's making inference, these sorts of things. But how you evaluate is totally up to you and your principal to set that up. So whether you're doing 5 quizzes of 20% each, or whether you're doing, a bunch of mini quizzes of 5% and big test, you can't call it an exam in elementary school, a big test of 50%, or if you're doing assignments, or if your homework is part of the mark or not part of the mark, there's, will give it, give you a transparent answer in some sort of way, right? They do have to have something in place that they can show their principal, here's how I can put the mark. So they're not just pulling it out of the hat. There is a system in place, but again, this goes back to the homework discussion, how different teachers give more or less. The way kids are marked can be completely different, and the way things are weighted can be completely different, right? One teacher might weight ideas and creativity more strongly than mechanics and spelling. And so maybe, the dyslexic child that I spoke of, maybe they would have gotten an 85. Maybe another teacher, it's the opposite, would have gotten a 55. Goes back to my original point of how limited the system is.
Let me help you take your parenting from ordinary to extraordinary. Contact me today and let's talk.